Hey, it's Jason from Walrus Audio here today to talk about Canvas Expression. We have designed Canvas Expression to be completely configurable and flexible to work with all types of gear that you might want to use an expression pedal with. So we have dual expression outputs that are independently configurable. We have Midi expression out via 1/8 inch to interface to a pedalboard environment. And then we have Midi out over USB. So you can actually use this as a Midi expression pedal for your DAWs and plugins, things like that. All of this is built on the same position sensing technology that we brought for the volume pedal. So there's nothing to wear out or break. You won't get any inconsistencies from one use to another. It'll perform the same way every single time over time. So I want to quickly go over all of the jacks and buttons and LEDs, all the elements of Canvas Expression that you're going to interact with. And then we'll dive in and take a look at each element in more detail and how we set those up and how we use those things. So if we look on the right side of the pedal, you see we have jack A and B. These are our analog expression outputs that are configurable to be expression, CV outputs, and switch output. We also have 1/8 inch Midi in and out. So this lets you put Canvas Expression in your Midi chain, or you can of course just run straight out of this, and this could be the start of your Midi chain. But this lets these Midi messages flow to your devices that you want to control via Midi. And then on the top, we have the power input jack as well as the USB-C jack. USB-C we use to interface the pedal to our web editor, as well as pass MIDI messages to your DAW or plugins, things like that, to control those soft pieces of software on your computer. And then if we flip it around on the back, we have our UI layout for configuring the 1/4 inch output jacks and setting those up to be sort of whatever you need them to be. We've got 2 buttons, 4 LEDs that let us select what parameter we're editing, and then we have 3 value LEDs per parameter, and then we have a set of LEDs on the far right that tell us what jack we're editing. It's important to know because they're completely independently configurable, so we need to know if we're setting up the settings for jack A or B, and those LEDs will tell you that. Now let's do a quick overview of the Onboard UI on Canvas Expression and how we use that to set up the analog 1/4 inch expression outputs. So the first thing we do is we need to look at which jack we're editing. So on the far right of the user interface, we look and see that we're set up to edit jack A right now. If we want to switch that, we click both buttons at the same time, and now we're editing the parameters for jack B. So I'll switch back to jack A, and then if we want to navigate through the parameters to set those things up, we just click the left and the right buttons to go to the parameter that we want to manipulate. And then when we get to one that we want to change, say we're on direction here and we want to set this to direction 2, which would be reverse, then we'll hold down left and click the right button, and that lets us go right. If we want to do a change of setting and we want to go to the left, we hold down the right and we click the left button. So let's take a look at setting up this 1/4 inch interface between Canvas Expression and the Juliana. The first thing we want to do is set jack A, because that's the jack we're plugged into, and make sure that we're editing jack A, which we are here. And then the next thing we'll do is set that jack to be an expression output. So I will manipulate that setting and set that type to expression. And then I'll look at the wiring type here. So we want this to be set up as an RTS connection. It's similar to a TRS connection, but this determines what conductor that the control voltage, the expression control voltage, is being transmitted on. So in the case of Walrus pedals and most other common guitar pedals, you will want to use RTS with Canvas Expression, and that will send the control voltage on the ring conductor. So we will change that setting as well to be RTS. And if we keep going, we'll look at direction. That's default set to forward, and that's what we want. That means our minimum value is at heel down and our max is at toe down. You can, of course, change that to reverse if you would like. And then the final parameter here is X, which in the case of the expression type output, X manipulates our curve, or the taper of our expression signal curve that we're sending to the pedal. That's defaulted to value 2, which is linear, and that's typically what you'd want to use. You can, of course, change that to an A taper or a C taper, which will give you different feel over the sweep of the expression pedal. So once we've made those changes, now we see if we rock and move the expression pedal, you can notice the rate LED is changing on the Juliana, and you can listen to that as we move the expression pedal treadle here. So you can move between all different rates. As we move the pedal. So we have a sound dialed up on the subsequent 25. I'll play that. And the filter is rolled off or closed because we're at heel down and we're connected to the filter CV input here. As I move to toe down, you'll hear the filter open up. And then as I sweep back to heel down, we close the filter. We could do things like change the direction, and that will reverse the behavior here. So at toe down, you'll hear the filters closed. And then as I move to heel down, we open the filter because we've changed the direction. And now we're going to transition and talk about the Midi outputs, starting with the 1/8 inch Midi outputs. Those are geared to control gears like pedals, things on your pedal board. That is how you'll integrate Canvas Expression into your Midi chain on your pedal board. We have Canvas Expression connected to the R1 and the ACS one, and then we have my computer connected to Canvas Expression via USB-C. And then using a Chrome web browser, we've got the editor pulled up here so that we can change and set up all of our MIDI settings. So if I go to the 1/8 inch Midi out page, and then we have 16 MIDI message slots that we can set up to control whatever we want. In this case, I want to control the R1 decay. So I'm going to go to slot 1 and select CC. And then I'm going to set that to CC number 3, which is the CC number for decay on the R1. And then I'll set that to channel 1, which is what we have the R1 set to. And I'll name this R1 decay so we can kind of remember that. And then I'm going to leave everything else the same for now. And I just hit send to pedal. That will send all these settings to Canvas Expression. And then we can see I'm now controlling the decay on the R1. And we only see that bar show up whenever I've moved the control, but it always is happening in the background. So if we listen to that, if we bring expression pedal down to heel down, that's going to be shortest decay. And then toe down will be longest decay. That minimum setting of 30 is a little short for me, so I'm going to go back to the editor and I'm going to change my minimum CC value to be 50. And then when I send that to the pedal, now I have a longer minimum decay at heel down. So again, toe down is nice and long. And then if I go to heel down, we've shortened it, but now we're in this window of like around a little less than half of the decay setting on the R1 to almost maximum. We can take this even a step further if we add another CC into the mix. Maybe a shorter reverb, I want to have a little lower mix, and as I lengthen the decay, I want to increase the mix. So we can set up a CC to control the mix on the R1, which if we look at the manual is CC 14. So I'm going to set that to 14 on channel 1, again because that's what the R1 is set to. I'll name this R1 mix so I can remember what this CC is doing. And right off the bat, I know that I don't ever want a full dry mix or a full wet mix. So I'm going to dial in these min and max points to be 50 to 75. And then send that to the pedal. And so now Canvas Expression is going to control the decay knob and the mix knob, but at custom ranges, defined custom ranges at heel down to toe down. So as I sweep heel down, we have a lower mix and a lower decay. And as I increase and go to toe down, our mix comes up, our decay gets longer, full toe down. And we can see we're controlling mix in this small region here. Maybe I want it to be a little bit more wet at toe down, so let's go to 90 in the editor and save that, send that to the pedal. Now again, heel down, shorter and more dry. Toe down. There we go. Longer decay and a more wet mix there. So another MIDI message type that we can send are PCs or program changes. And these allow us to change presets on pedals on our pedal board at different positions of the Canvas Expression travel. So an example of this might be you want quick access to a particular preset on a pedal at full toe down. And maybe we are running on a preset that's a more tame reverb on the R1 and using the Canvas Expression to sweep through that during the front part of our song, and then maybe the back half of our song, we switch to a much more intense, bigger reverb that's on preset 3, for example, that's programmed into the R1. So let's set that up. If we go to the Canvas Expression web editor, I'll go to 1/8 inch MIDI and then go to slot 1 and choose PC. And then again, I want to switch to that third preset on the R1, so I'll go to program 3, and then I'll call this R1 preset 3, and set the threshold to toe. That means when we get to full toe down, that is going to trigger this message event and send this program change message on channel 1. So I'll hit send to pedal, and that throws these settings down to Canvas Expression. And now, say we're on our more tame reverb setting on the R1 and we're sweeping through our parameters maybe that we have assigned, and we get to that point in the song and we want to just quickly switch to that big reverb. So we go to full toe down and it sends that PC message and allows us to have quick access to a particular preset. So a lot of times with a pedal that you can assign an expression control to, you can't necessarily assign the range that it controls, but you can gate that with Canvas Expression using the web editor. So if we set this minimum percentage to say 30 and the maximum to say 90, now as we sweep through the pedal at heel down, we're only going to be going down to 30%. We're not going to go to 0. And if we go to toe down, we'll be at 90%. So we won't be all the way to maximum. So we get to choose and define this range. And this is incredibly helpful for controlling things like decay times on a reverb or mix on a delay or rate on a modulation pedal. If you don't want to go all the way as slow as it can go, or maybe all the way as fast as it can go, you can define that range in the web editor and therefore only control those parameters inside of that range as you sweep through Canvas Expression. So everything that we did with 1/8 inch MIDI out and setting those messages up in the web editor, we can also do that for USB MIDI output. You'd use this to connect it to your computer and control things in your DAW, like the DAW itself or plugins, things like that. So let's take a look at that. We have Canvas Expression still connected to my laptop with the web editor open. And so if we click on USB MIDI, we get a very similar screen. Notice you still have 16 slots, for MIDI messages, and you can configure these however you want. So I have GarageBand running, and if I go and set up a CC to be maybe CC7, and this is channel volume, we'll label that, and we'll send that to the pedal. And if we go and look at GarageBand, I just have a simple MIDI piano pulled up here, and as we move the expression pedal, you see I'm changing the channel volume there. We can add another message and control the tremolo of this electric piano. If we go to CC in slot 2 and we set that up to be CC number 1, it happens to correspond to the tremolo knob, and then we send that to the pedal. When we flip over to GarageBand, and now we see we're sweeping the channel volume, and you notice the tremolo knob is sweeping min to max. We have all the same abilities that we did before with the 1/8" MIDI out, so we can define custom ranges. So say on that tremolo knob, I want to go from 50 to full. So 50 is our minimum, and then max is 127. Send that to the pedal, and that updates that parameter. And now we're just going between a little past noon there to maximum on the tremolo knob. Let's also take a look at the utility menu on Canvas Expression. So if you have the power unplugged from the pedal, you hold down both buttons while applying power, and all the LEDs will light up a single color, and this lets us know that we're in the utility menu. We can move through the different options in the utility menu by clicking our arrow buttons, and in this case, on the Canvas Expression, we have 3 utility features. The first one here is purple. This is factory reset. We go one over to the right and we have calibration, and the last one is DFU mode. We use that for like manual firmware updates and things like that. If you want to select any of these and actually engage the utility menu option, then you just go to the one you want to engage and click and hold the left button until the LEDs start blinking. And in this case, that's factory reset. And we just watched it erase all the settings and set all the parameters back to the factory default and then reboot. If you want to do things like calibrate or enter DFU mode, you do that the same way. You take the power out and hold down both buttons while applying the power. And you get into the mode where all the LEDs are a solid color, and then you move to the utility function that you want to do and hold down the left button. If you want to break out of the utility menu at any time, you can just pull the power out and plug it back in, and it will reboot like normal. One other adjustment on Canvas Expression, just like on Canvas Volume, is the drag adjust screw. So if you want to make the treadle a little more stiff, if you look on the bottom here, we take a 4mm Allen wrench, and you can turn this screw here clockwise in 1/4 to 1/2 inch increments, and that will add friction to the treadle as you tighten the screw. And of course, if you loosen it, you take friction away and it makes it easier to move the treadle. So here we just have another level of adjustment and customizability for how you like the pedal to feel underfoot. Hey, thanks so much for hanging out with us and checking out Canvas Expression. There's 3 things I want to tell you. If you want to buy it, we think that's a good idea, and you can do that at walrusaudio.com, as well as going to any of our dealers and picking it up there. If you need help, or if you have questions, you can just shoot an email to help@walrusaudio.com, and we will get back to you ASAP and help you out, help you set it up, address any questions you might have. And then walrusaudio.io is the site that you can go to handle all firmware updates and access the web editor for easy setup of the entire pedal, all parameters, 1/4 inch jacks, 1/8 MIDI, USB, MIDI, and some global settings are all found right there, making it really easy to set it up. So check all those things out. Thanks so much for being here.